The Varian sector was known as the Graveyard of Stars. Even the bravest captains avoided it. Ancient suns drifted through darkness like dying embers, casting weak red light across frozen planets and shattered moons. Entire fleets had vanished there over the centuries. Some blamed pirates. Others blamed gravitational anomalies. A few whispered darker things hiding inside the void. But the Corthal Union feared nothing. For over 3,000 years, the Union ruled the galaxy through overwhelming military power. Their silver warships patrolled thousands of systems, and entire civilizations surrendered the moment Union fleets entered orbit. Commander Threx had spent his whole life enforcing that power. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, covered in ceremonial black armor, he looked down from the command platform of the cruiser Varkesh with complete confidence. 4 glowing silver eyes studied the holographic star map floating in the center of the bridge. Everything was normal, until the alarms started screaming. A young officer spun around in panic. Commander, unknown gravitational disturbance detected near Oryx 9. Threx narrowed his eyes. Natural. We don't know. The bridge lights dimmed as scanners focused on the edge of the sector. A swirling distortion appeared on the main screen, twisting space itself like a storm tearing through reality. Crew members exchanged nervous glances. Then something emerged from the distortion. At first, it looked like a shadow. Then the full shape appeared. Silence spread across the bridge instantly. The ship was gigantic. Not elegant like Union vessels, not smooth or beautiful. It looked brutal. Heavy armored plating covered its surface like layers of steel mountains. Massive weapon batteries lined both sides of the hull. Enormous engines burned blue-white at the rear, glowing like miniature suns against the darkness. The unknown vessel moved slowly through space with terrifying confidence. Like it feared absolutely nothing. One officer whispered softly, "That's impossible." Commander Threx felt irritation rise in his chest. No ship should be larger than a Union command carrier. Yet this thing dwarfed them all. "Scan it," he ordered coldly. The officers obeyed immediately. But moments later, confusion spread across the bridge. "Commander, scanners are failing." "What?" "Energy interference is blocking identification." "Species unknown." "Technology unknown." "Weapon systems unknown." The bridge became tense. That had never happened before. The Corthal Union possessed the most advanced databases in the galaxy. Every known civilization, every known engine signature, every known military design had been cataloged centuries ago. But this ship matched nothing. Then suddenly, the communication systems activated on their own. Static filled the bridge. A deep human voice echoed through the speakers. "Unknown vessels. This is the United Earth Battleship Titan. You are approaching restricted military territory. Identify yourselves immediately." Every officer froze. The voice sounded calm. "Controlled. Not afraid." Threx slowly stepped forward. "This is Commander Threx of the Corthal Union," he announced proudly. "You are operating inside monitored Union space. Shut down your systems and prepare for inspection." Several seconds passed. Then the response came. "Negative." One word. Cold as ice. Murmurs exploded across the bridge. "How dare they? Arrogant primitives. Destroy them immediately." But Threx raised one hand for silence. Something about the ship bothered him. Most species panicked when facing Union warships. This one didn't even sound concerned. The commander studied the vessel carefully on the screen. The hull was covered in visible scars and repair marks. Burned metal stretched across entire sections like old battle wounds. Some weapon batteries looked ancient, yet terrifyingly powerful. This wasn't a ceremonial warship. This ship had survived war. A lot of war. "Commander," an officer interrupted nervously, "the unknown vessel is activating internal systems." The scanner display suddenly exploded with warning symbols. Energy readings climbed higher. And higher. Then higher still. The bridge lights flickered violently. "Impossible," another officer shouted. "Their reactor output exceeds Union dreadnought levels." Threx felt a cold sensation crawl into his spine. No ship should produce that much power. The human voice returned once more. "You are targeting a United Earth Navy battleship. Leave this sector immediately." This time, the calm voice carried something worse than anger. Experience. Like soldiers who had seen horrors far beyond imagination. Commander Threx hesitated for the first time in years. Around him, nervous officers waited for orders. His pride battled against his instincts. If he retreated now, it would humiliate the Union. But every survival instinct in his body screamed that something was terribly wrong. Then one frightened officer made the mistake that changed galactic history forever. Without permission, he fired. A bright plasma beam shot across space and slammed directly into the Titan's forward hull. The explosion lit up the darkness like a newborn star. Everyone held their breath. Seconds passed. Then the fire faded. The human battleship remained completely still. No shields. No damage. Not even a scratch. Fear spread silently across the bridge. Then every scanner aboard the fleet detected the same horrifying signal simultaneously. Warning, unknown weapon system HFY. Deep inside the Titan, massive mechanical structures began moving. And somewhere within the giant warship, something enormous started charging. The bridge of the Varkesh fell into complete silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Every eye stared at the giant human battleship floating in the darkness ahead of them. Then the warning alarms began screaming louder. Massive energy spike detected. Unknown weapon systems activating. Gravitational distortions increasing. Commander Threx gripped the edge of his command platform tightly as the tactical display flickered with red emergency symbols. His heart pounded harder with every passing second. The Titan was changing. Sections of its armored hull slowly shifted apart with heavy mechanical force. Massive metal plates folded backward, exposing glowing internal structures buried deep inside the ship. And at the center of it all was a cannon. The alien officers stared in disbelief. The weapon stretched nearly half the length of the battleship itself. Thick magnetic rails surrounded its barrel like the bones of some ancient mechanical beast. Blue energy crackled violently around the structure, illuminating the darkness of space. One officer laughed nervously. "A primitive kinetic weapon." Another officer relaxed slightly. "Impossible. No advanced species still uses projectile cannons." But Commander Threx remained silent. Something about the weapon felt wrong. Very wrong. The scanners suddenly failed again. "Commander," a technician shouted, "the weapon is producing impossible gravitational readings." "How impossible?" The officer swallowed hard. "The system thinks it's creating a localized distortion field." Threx frowned. "That's not possible." Then the human transmission returned. "This is your final warning. Retreat immediately." The voice remained calm. No panic. No desperation. Only certainty. That confidence ignited anger across the alien bridge. The Corthal Union had conquered empires older than most stars. Entire civilizations collapsed at the mere mention of their fleets. And now one unknown ship dared threaten them. Commander Threx finally made his decision. "All ships," he ordered coldly, "prepare coordinated attack formation." The bridge officers hesitated. "Commander, perhaps we should notify High Command first." "I gave an order." Fear spread quietly through the crew, but nobody disobeyed. Outside the ship, the Union fleet began moving into combat positions around the Titan. Cruisers spread outward in a massive circular formation, while weapon systems locked onto the human battleship from every angle. Thousands of targeting signals flooded space. Still, the Titan did not move. It simply waited, like a predator watching frightened animals surround it. Fire. The darkness exploded instantly. Hundreds of plasma beams shot forward together like a storm of blue lightning. Missile swarms followed behind them, filling the void with trails of burning energy. Ion cannons thundered across the battlefield, powerful enough to vaporize cities. The attack illuminated the dead sector brighter than a star. The entire alien fleet unleashed everything. Explosions swallowed the Titan completely. Firestorms rolled across its massive hull. Shockwaves spread through space. For several moments, nobody could even see the human ship anymore. Then slowly, the smoke cleared, and fear gripped every alien heart. The Titan was still there, completely untouched. No shield barrier surrounded it. No visible defense systems activated. The attacks had simply failed. One officer whispered shakily, "How?" Another stepped backward in horror. That amount of firepower could destroy moons. Commander Threx felt cold sweat forming beneath his armor. Then the giant cannon began glowing brighter. The soundless darkness of space itself seemed to bend around the weapon. Blue lightning twisted across the barrel while invisible gravitational waves distorted nearby stars. The human battleship finally moved. Slowly, deliberately, it turned its enormous cannon directly toward the Union fleet. Aboard the Titan, deep within the armored command center, Captain Elias Ward stood calmly before the tactical display. Unlike the panicking aliens, the human crew looked completely focused. Experienced. This was not their first battle. A young officer glanced toward Ward nervously. "Sir, enemy fleet still targeting us." Ward nodded once. "Atlas cannon charged." "Fully charged, Captain." The human captain stared at the alien fleet silently for a moment. Then he spoke 3 simple words. "Fire the cannon." The universe cracked apart. A massive beam erupted from the Titan with terrifying force, brighter than a supernova. But it wasn't ordinary energy. It looked unnatural. Compressed light wrapped inside gravitational distortion and magnetic fury. The beam crossed space instantly. 3 Union cruisers disappeared. Not exploded. Not damaged. Erased. Their ships simply vanished into expanding clouds of atoms. Shockwaves ripped through nearby vessels, sending entire formations spinning helplessly into each other. Emergency alarms screamed across the battlefield. Panic erupted immediately. Fleet formation collapsing. Multiple ships destroyed. Our shields failed instantly. Commander Threx stumbled backward as another cruiser vanished from his tactical display. The weapon had ignored their shield systems completely. That should have been impossible. Entire wars had been fought over shield technology. The Union's defenses were considered unbeatable. Yet the human cannon had sliced through them like paper. Outside the viewports, terrified Union ships began retreating in every direction. The mighty Corthal fleet was running from a single battleship. But Captain Ward wasn't celebrating. His eyes narrowed as a new warning appeared across the Titan screens. "Unknown hyperspace, SIGN8 URES DTCTD. Then another, and another. Dozens of new distortions suddenly opened across the sector. One human officer looked up slowly. "Captain." Ward's expression hardened immediately, because emerging from hyperspace around them was an entire fleet of living ships. Space went silent for a fraction of a second, like the entire universe had taken a breath and forgotten how to exhale. Then the Atlas auxiliary discharge fired. It was not a beam anymore. Not a projectile. It was a rupture in reality itself. A spear of compressed gravitational force and condensed energy tore outward from the Titan. But its effect was far beyond anything the Corthal Union or the Vorlax swarm had ever witnessed. The moment it touched the swarm formation, space bent. Entire living ships collapsed inward as if the universe had decided they were never supposed to exist. Organic hulls twisted, folded, and disappeared into collapsing pockets of gravity. No explosion. No fire. Just erasure. On the bridge of the Varkesh, Commander Threx stumbled backward as half the tactical display went dark. Report, he barked. A technician's voice shook. Commander, we've lost entire swarm clusters. They didn't detonate, they just ceased to exist. Silence followed. Even Union veterans who had survived 100 campaigns stood frozen. Across the battlefield, the Vorlax swarm reacted instantly. The living ships that remained pulled back as if struck by instinctual terror. Their glowing eyes shifted, recalculating, adapting, but this time slower than before. For the first time, the swarm was hesitating. Inside the Titan, alarms still screamed. Gravitational backlash stabilizing. Auxiliary systems overheating. Multiple hull stress fractures detected. Captain Elias Ward stood perfectly still through it all. Damage report, he ordered calmly. A young officer swallowed hard. Minimal external damage, sir, but the discharge destabilized local space. We can't fire that again without risking collapse of the sector. Ward nodded once. That's fine. He turned toward the tactical hologram. The swarm was no longer advancing. It was watching, like an animal that had just seen a predator capable of killing its entire species. But they were not alone. The Corthal Union fleet was still there. And now they were terrified of both sides. Commander Threx clenched his claws. This is madness, he whispered. Both of them, they're not normal fleets. A nearby officer suddenly pointed at the screen. Commander, swarm regrouping. The remaining biological ships began shifting formation. Instead of charging blindly, they formed a wide spiral around the Titan and Union fleet combined. A containment pattern. They were adapting. Learning. The swarm had realized something important. The Titan was the greatest threat, and everything else was secondary. Captain Ward noticed immediately. They're isolating us, he said quietly. Target priority shifting, a tactical officer confirmed. We are now primary target for all swarm units. Ward's expression did not change. Expected. Then he gave a new order. Launch defensive perimeter drones. The Titan responded instantly. Hundreds of small autonomous machines shot out into space, forming a rotating shield grid around the battleship. Each drone pulsed with reactive energy fields, intercepting incoming organic missiles before they could reach hull contact. The swarm struck immediately. Living projectiles slammed into the drone field. Explosions of biological matter erupted across space. But the swarm kept coming. And coming. And coming. On the Union Bridge, Threx watched as the battle escalated into something beyond comprehension. Human drones held the line against the swarm. Union ships drifted helplessly behind them, no longer sure whether to fight, flee, or simply survive. Then suddenly, a new signal appeared on the scanners. Commander, unknown third-class signal detected. Threx frowned. More swarm reinforcements. No, it's different. The tactical display zoomed out. A second distortion appeared at the edge of the system. Then a third. Then a fourth. More hyperspace rifts opening, but not swarm. Not Union. Something else. And they were massive. Even larger than the Titan. A deep silence fell across every bridge in the sector. Captain Ward narrowed his eyes. That wasn't in the report, he said slowly. A communications officer replied, voice tight. Sir, we are detecting multiple unidentified war signatures entering the system. The new arrivals began to emerge. Armored silhouettes. Structured fleets. Organized. Not organic like the swarm. Not familiar like the Union. Completely unknown. Commander Threx felt a cold realization settle in his chest. This sector, he whispered, it was never empty. Outside, space was now filled with three forces. The Corthal Union fleet, broken and terrified. The Vorlax swarm, hungry and adapting. And the unknown Third Armada, silent, massive, and watching everything unfold. Captain Ward stood at the center of it all. And for the first time since the battle began. Even he paused, because whatever was arriving now, was not reacting to the swarm, not reacting to the Union. It was reacting to him. Space around Orax 9 grew heavier, as if the vacuum itself had gained weight. The Third Armada fully emerged from hyperspace. They were not organic like the Vorlax swarm, not chaotic like living plague ships, and not familiar like the Corthal Union fleets. They were structured, perfectly aligned, monolithic warships of dark metallic design, each one covered in shifting geometric armor that seemed to rearrange itself as it moved. Their engines burned with a pale violet light that bent starlight around them. And at their center was a single command vessel, larger than anything present in the system. On the bridge of the Varkesh, Commander Threx felt his instincts scream. "These are not swarm," he whispered. A technician answered immediately. No Union database matches them, no known faction, no recorded contact history. The tactical display updated again. Unknown designation, Nemesis Array. The moment the name appeared, every alien system across the battlefield flickered. Even the swarm hesitated. For the first time, the biological fleet stopped advancing entirely. Every eye-like formation turned toward the new arrivals. They recognized them, and they feared them. Inside the Titan, alarms shifted tone. Not urgent, not defensive. Warning. Captain Elias Ward stood still, as the holographic display showed all three forces now surrounding them. Union remnants on one side, swarm clusters on the other, and the Nemesis Array closing in from deep space. A junior officer swallowed hard. "Captain, we're being encircled." Ward nodded once. "Yeah." Then he added quietly, "But not equally." The Nemesis ships began moving first. Not toward the Union. Not toward the swarm. Toward the Titan. Commander Threx noticed immediately. "They're targeting the human ship." The Union officers panicked. Let them fight each other. But the swarm reacted differently. Instead of attacking the Nemesis fleet, they retreated slightly, adjusting formation, as if making space for something far worse. That alone terrified Threx more than anything else. Even the swarm did not want to be near the Nemesis Array. On every channel, silence fell. Then a new transmission opened. It was not translated by Union systems. It forced itself through. A distorted voice echoed across all fleets simultaneously. Anomaly identified. Class human. Status impossible. On the Titan's bridge, every human officer turned toward Captain Ward. Ward didn't move. He only narrowed his eyes slightly. "Confirm origin," he ordered. "Unknown, Captain," came the reply. "It's not using any standard communication system. It's directly interfacing with our ship." Threx heard that and froze. "Interfacing," he whispered, "with a battleship that resisted Union hacking systems." The Nemesis Array moved closer. Massive warships aligned in a half-circle formation around the Titan. Not attacking. Observing. Like scientists studying something that should not exist. The distorted voice spoke again. "You should not exist." Captain Ward finally stepped forward. His voice came calm, steady. "Neither should you." A pause. The entire battlefield froze. Even the swarm stopped moving. Then the Nemesis voice responded. "Observation, humor protocol DATACTED, insufficient data." Ward tilted his head slightly. "You're here for observation." "Confirmed." "Then observe this," Ward said quietly. The Titan system surged. But this time, instead of the Atlas cannon or defensive grids, something new activated. Deep within the ship, systems that had not been used since construction came online. A different kind of power. Not weaponized energy. Not gravitational collapse. Something far more controlled. Precision targeting arrays locked onto the Nemesis flagship. A human officer hesitated. "Captain, those systems were never tested in combat." Ward's answer was immediate. "Everything is tested in combat, eventually." On the alien bridge, Threx felt his chest tighten. What are they doing now? Outside, the Titan did not fire. It calculated. And for the first time since the battle began, the Nemesis array's formation shifted slightly. A subtle reaction. Uncertainty. Inside their collective intelligence, something unfamiliar had appeared. A species that did not follow expected survival patterns. Humans were not retreating, not panicking, not negotiating. They were adapting, learning, preparing, and that disturbed the Nemesis array more than any weapon ever could. The swarm, still nearby, began slowly backing away again. They had seen enough death already. They wanted no part of what came next. Commander Threx stared at all three forces. His voice was barely audible. This is not a battlefield anymore. A junior officer replied softly. Then what is it? Threx looked at the Titan, at the humans standing calmly in the center of three terrifying civilizations. It's a test. And deep in space, the Nemesis array began charging something that had never been seen before. The Titan responded in kind. And for the first time in the entire conflict, both sides prepared to fire simultaneously. The tension in space became absolute. No ship moved. No weapon fired. Even the Vorlax swarm held position, their organic hulls pulsing in slow, uneasy rhythm as if sensing something beyond instinct. The Nemesis array maintained its perfect formation around the Titan. And the Titan itself waited. On the bridge of the Varkesh, Commander Threx felt something he had never experienced in his entire military career. Powerlessness, not from one enemy, from all of them. Three forces, three unknowns, and the center of it all was a single human battleship that refused to behave like anything in the galaxy should. A technician suddenly spoke, voice trembling. Commander, Nemesis fleet energy spike increasing exponentially. Another followed immediately. Swarm hive clusters are also reacting. They're synchronizing. Threx snapped his head toward the display. What did you say? The hologram zoomed out. And he saw it. The impossible. The swarm and the Nemesis array were reacting to each other's energy signatures, not cooperating, not allying, but resonating. Like two different systems, recognizing the same fundamental law. And between them, the Titan stood alone. Captain Elias Ward saw it too. His expression tightened slightly for the first time. Interesting, he said quietly. A junior officer looked at him. Sir? Ward didn't answer immediately. Then, they're not just different factions. He paused. They're parts of something larger. No one spoke. Even the crew knew better than to interrupt that tone. Outside, the Nemesis flagship began projecting a massive energy lattice across space. Thin violet lines stretched outward, connecting ships in geometric patterns that defied orbital mechanics. At the same time, the swarm responded with biological synchronization. Their ships aligned into a spiraling neural formation, glowing brighter as if forming a shared mind across thousands of vessels. The Union fleet was caught in between, drifting and broken, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. Commander Threx whispered, "This isn't war," then corrected himself immediately. "It's convergence." Suddenly, every communication channel erupted at once. The Nemesis voice returned. Anomaly human, final assessment initiated. The swarm responded simultaneously through biological resonance. Unknown presence, unclassified, must be absorbed or eliminated. The Titan remained silent. Captain Ward stepped forward. "Looks like everyone finally agrees on something," he said. An officer glanced at him nervously. "That we're the target." Ward shook his head slightly. "No." He looked at the tactical readouts. "That we don't fit their system." Outside, the Nemesis array began charging its central weapon. But this was not a cannon. Not a beam. It was a spatial collapse engine, reality folding inward along controlled geometric lines. At the same time, the swarm concentrated all hive energy into a single biological supercore, preparing a mass evolution strike capable of rewriting matter at a molecular level. Two apocalyptic forces, one human battleship, and none of them were waiting anymore. "Captain," a voice called out urgently, "we're detecting simultaneous firing preparations from both enemy groups." Ward nodded once. "Yeah." He turned slightly toward the crew. "Then we don't wait either." A silence followed. The crew understood. This was the moment everything ended or changed forever. Ward gave the order. "Activate full Atlas synchronization." The Titan responded. But instead of one cannon, multiple systems awakened across the ship. Hidden weapon layers unfolded. Ancient human battle protocols came online. Not just firepower, doctrine, strategy, memory. On the alien bridge, Threx saw something terrifying. The Titan wasn't just a ship. It was a system of war history made physical. Every battle humanity had ever fought seemed to echo inside its structure. Every lesson, every loss, every evolution of survival. Threx stepped back slowly. They've been at war longer than we can imagine. Then the Nemesis array fired first. Reality bent. Space folded inward in a clean geometric collapse aimed directly at the Titan. At the exact same moment, the swarm released its biological singularity wave. A storm of adaptive matter surged forward, rewriting everything it touched. Both attacks converged on the Titan. The human captain finally spoke. "Now," and the Titan answered with silence, followed by impossible light. Everything happened at once. Space stopped behaving like space. The Nemesis geometric collapse struck first, folding reality inward in sharp, impossible angles. At the same time, the Vorlax swarm unleashed its biological singularity wave, matter itself breaking down and rewriting into something new, something hostile, something alive. Both forces converged on the Titan. And for the first time since its arrival, the human battleship did not look invincible. It looked surrounded. On the bridge of the Varkesh, Commander Threx felt his breath lock in his throat. "If that hits," he whispered. A technician finished the thought for him. "Nothing survives." The Titan vanished inside the collision. A silent flash spread across space, not light but absence. A region where stars bent incorrectly, where sensors failed to agree on what reality was supposed to be. The Union fleet began retreating instinctively. Even damaged ships turned away. Not from orders, from instinct. But Captain Elias Ward did not move. Inside the Titan, alarms were no longer screaming. They had already reached maximum state. Now everything was calm. Too calm. "Impact confirmed," an officer said quietly. "Structural integrity." A pause. Then, "Still stable." That should not have been possible. The swarm wave twisted first, trying to rewrite the Titan's molecular structure. It found resistance, not shields, not armor, but something deeper, like the ship itself refused to be rewritten. The Nemesis collapse followed. Space attempted to fold around the Titan and failed. Failed. For the first time, both apocalyptic systems encountered something they could not immediately overwrite. Inside the Titan, Captain Ward finally spoke. "Good." A junior officer turned sharply. "Sir, good." Ward stared at the tactical readout. "They're testing limits." He tapped the hologram once. "And now we know theirs." Outside, the Titan began to change. Not in damage. In response, hidden layers of the ship activated, systems the Union could not detect before because they were not meant to be visible. Segments of the hull shifted, rotating into new configurations. Energy channels rerouted across the entire structure like a living equation solving itself in real time. Commander Threx watched in disbelief. "It's adapting," he whispered. "No," another officer replied shakily. It's responding. The Titan pushed forward, through the collapsing space, through the biological distortion, straight toward the Nemesis flagship. And for the first time, the Nemesis array reacted with hesitation. Anomaly moving through collapse field, their voice transmitted. Impossible trajectory. The swarm shifted instantly, attempting to intercept. But the Titan was no longer where it used to be. It was elsewhere for fractions of seconds at a time, slipping through unstable space like it understood the rules better than reality itself. Captain Ward's voice was steady. Target Nemesis core. A tactical officer hesitated. Sir, swarm interference is still active. Ward cut him off. I said target. The Atlas systems realigned. Not as a cannon. As a precision strike network. Energy built not in one place, but across the entire ship, distributed, controlled, synchronized. On the alien bridge, Threx's instinct screamed again. This is not a weapon, he muttered. It's an execution system. The Titan fired. But it did not fire at the swarm. It did not fire at the collapsing space. It fired directly at the Nemesis flagship's central structure. A beam of controlled gravitational force and compressed energy shot forward, not chaotic like before, but focused. Perfect. The Nemesis array attempted to counter. Too late. Their geometric shields formed, but the Titan's strike didn't collide with them. It redefined the point of impact. Space inside the shield simply agreed to be hit. And the Nemesis core flickered. For the first time, their voice changed. Error, undefined weapon behavior. The strike landed. The flagship did not explode. It paused, as if the concept of its existence had been interrupted. Then slowly, sections of the massive vessel began to break apart, not violently, but structurally, like a solved equation collapsing into nothing. On the swarm side, panic spread. Their hive intelligence registered something unprecedented. A predator that did not just kill. It invalidated systems. Commander Threx staggered. This can't be happening. The Nemesis array began retreating instantly. For the first time since their arrival, they broke formation. The swarm followed seconds later. Not fleeing together. Fleeing independently. Both ancient horrors reacting the same way. Avoid. Survive. Escape the human ship. Inside the Titan, silence returned. Captain Ward exhaled slowly. Status. A pause. Then the response came. Enemy forces disengaging. Ward nodded once. Good. But then a new alert appeared. Unknown residual signature DATCTD. And far beyond the battlefield, deeper in the galaxy. Something answered the Titan's presence. Something older than the swarm. Older than the Nemesis array. Something that had been watching the entire time. Captain Ward read the signal. And for the first time in the entire battle, his expression changed slightly. Because whatever was coming next was not reacting to war. It was reacting to humanity itself. Space after the battle was not peaceful. It was wrong. Stars flickered like unstable signals. Gravity fields still carried scars from the Nemesis collapse. Biological residue from the Vorlax swarm drifted through the void like dying embers of a nightmare that refused to fully end. The Union fleet remained frozen in place. No orders. No movement. No confidence left. Commander Threx stood at the shattered viewport of the Varkesh, staring at the empty battlefield where two apocalyptic forces had just been forced into retreat by a single human ship. His voice came out barely above a whisper. They didn't win. A technician looked at him. What? Threx slowly turned his head. They didn't win because they were stronger. He pointed toward the Titan. They won because they were certain. On the tactical display, the human battleship floated undamaged. Silent, calm, like the entire war had been nothing more than a routine test. Inside the Titan, systems were shutting down from combat mode. But no one relaxed. Captain Elias Ward stood alone on the bridge for a moment, watching the residual signature still lingering at the edge of sensor range. Unknown ancient signal. Origin unknown. Status OBSRVING. Ward narrowed his eyes. Still watching, he muttered. A junior officer stepped forward. Captain, both the Swarm and Nemesis array are retreating beyond sensor range. Ward nodded. Not retreating. He corrected quietly. Repositioning. The officer hesitated. Sir, do we pursue? For a moment, silence filled the bridge. Ward looked at the shattered void around them. Entire fleets gone. 2 terrifying civilizations pushed back. A sector that would never be considered empty again. Then he shook his head. No. The officer blinked. Why not? Ward finally turned away from the viewport. Because they're not the problem. That statement sent a quiet tension through the crew. He stepped closer to the tactical hologram. That signal out there didn't engage, didn't react, didn't interfere. He paused. It observed us fighting like we were data points. Commander Threx, still listening through open channels, felt a chill crawl up his spine. Ward continued. That means this wasn't first contact. He looked up slightly. It was assessment. On the Union Bridge, panic returned instantly. Assessment of what? An officer asked. Ward didn't answer immediately. Then, of whether we're worth responding to. A long silence followed. Even the damaged Union ships seemed to understand the implication. Somewhere beyond the battlefield, something ancient had measured the outcome. And humanity had passed. Or failed. Nobody knew which. Then suddenly, the unknown residual signal sharpened. Not louder. Not closer. Clearer. A transmission forced itself through every system in the sector simultaneously. Union, Swarm, remnants, even the Titan's hardened communication array. A voice that was not mechanical. Not organic. Not even entirely physical. It spoke one word first. Confirmed. Every ship froze. Then the message continued. Species designation, human. Status variable. Threat scale unresolved. On the Titan bridge, Captain Ward's expression tightened. That's not a greeting, he said quietly. The voice continued. Protocol shift initiated. Observation phase complete. Engagement phase scheduled. Commander Threx felt his stomach drop. Engagement, he whispered. The Union officer beside him shook. With what? The answer came instantly. With the source. A new distortion appeared far beyond the system. Not Swarm. Not Nemesis. Something far larger. A structure. A moving construct spanning distances that broke conventional mapping. It was not a fleet. It was not a civilization. It was a framework. As if reality itself had a governing architecture, and something inside it had just noticed humanity interfering with the design. Captain Ward stared at the incoming anomaly. And for the first time since the Titan entered this sector, he was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. All right. A pause. If they're finally sending the real answer. He turned toward his crew. Prepare the ship. Behind him, systems powered back online. Not defensive. Not reactive. But absolute. Commander Threx watched in disbelief. Even after everything they had endured. The humans were preparing again. Not retreating. Not negotiating. Preparing. The Titan turned toward the incoming, unknown structure. And across the void, the ancient intelligence watching everything finally moved closer. Not as an enemy. Not as an ally. As judgment. And humanity, standing between fallen empires and unknown gods of the void. Did not step back. End of story.